The roar of a Lamborghini shattered the morning peace. I didn't flinch. I knew exactly who it was. Breen Sutton, the spoiled son of the HOA president, tearing through my lawn again. His car left deep ruts in the grass as usual, but this time I'd had enough. I calmly set my coffee down and walked to the porch edge, watching the destruction. But what Breen didn't know was that the trench I'd dug wasn't just a line in the dirt, it was a trap. And the next time he tried to tear through my property, he was going to pay the price. I've lived in this neighborhood long enough to know how things work. The houses are all the same big suburban homes with neat yards and the same white picket fences. But what makes a house a home isn't just the bricks and mortar, it's the memories inside. And for me, that memory is Sarah. Sarah was my wife. We built this house together from the ground up. We spent hours pouring the concrete driveway, planting the trees, and picking out the best spot for the garden. Every inch of this property holds a piece of her. She's gone now, but when I walk out onto the porch, I can almost hear her laugh. It's like she's still here in the quiet mornings when I sit with my coffee watching the world wake up. But lately, that piece has been shattered. Breen Sutton is a problem. The kind of problem you don't want in your neighborhood. He's 23 trust fund kid, the sort of guy who thinks he can do whatever he wants because he's rich. I first noticed him when he got that Lamborghini. The thing is, Breen doesn't just drive it. He treats it like a toy speeding through the neighborhood like it's his personal racetrack. And my lawn, well, it's become his shortcut. At first I thought it was just a one-time thing. Maybe he was in a hurry. I can understand that. But then it happened again, and again. Every morning I'd hear the roar of that engine, and there he'd be tearing across my yard, leaving deep ruts in the grass as if it was some kind of joke to him. I'd go outside, look at the damage, and tell myself it was just a mistake. Maybe I was too soft. Maybe I should have said something sooner. But I didn't. I tried to handle it politely. The next time I saw Breen drive through my lawn, I walked over to his house to talk to him. I'm not a confrontational guy, but enough was enough. I rang the doorbell, and when he answered, he looked at me like I was wasting his time. He was wearing a tank top, looking half asleep like I'd just interrupted his beauty rest. I pointed out the tire marks on my lawn and asked him to stop using it as a shortcut. His response, a shrug. It's just grass, man. It'll grow back. It was like he wasn't even hearing me. I stood there feeling my blood start to boil. It wasn't just about grass anymore. It was about respect. He didn't care. He didn't care that I spent years working on this yard with Sarah. He didn't care that this lawn represented something far beyond a simple patch of grass. It was part of my life, part of our life. But I didn't lose my temper. Instead, I thanked him, turned around, and walked back home. I could feel the anger simmering inside me, but I knew I had to stay calm. What good would yelling do? It would only make him think I was overreacting. The next morning, I stood at the window watching. Sure enough, at 6:43 a.m., Breen's Lamborghini came roaring down the street, and right on cue, it cut across my lawn. This time, it wasn't just a quick pass. He spun the wheels, tearing up the grass even more, leaving behind huge patches of dirt where the grass used to be. I stood there watching the car disappear down the road, the damage already done. That was the moment I knew. Enough was enough. I had already tried being reasonable. I had tried talking to him, but he didn't care. No one seemed to care. The HOA didn't care. Delene Sutton Breen's mother ran the HOA, and she was just as dismissive as her son. Every time I tried to bring it up, she'd smile that fake smile and say, boys will be boys. I had to do something. I wasn't going to let this go on any longer. This time I wouldn't just be polite. I wouldn't just ask. I was going to make sure Breen understood the consequences of disrespecting my property. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I was about to find out. The next few days were a blur of frustration. I'd wake up, get my coffee, and watch the sunrise, hoping for some peace. But every morning without fail, I'd hear the roar of that damn Lamborghini tearing down the street. It wasn't even about the lawn anymore. It was about principle. I had worked too hard for this. Sarah and I built this house together, and now some spoiled kid was treating it like a playground. I tried to tell myself to stay calm, to just keep documenting everything, but with each new tire track, it felt like Breen was slapping me in the face. Day after day, I stood on my porch watching the destruction. I started to count the minutes, 6:43 a.m. Exactly. The Lamborghini would come screaming down the road, cut through my yard, and tear up another few feet of grass. It wasn't just the lawn anymore. It was the disrespect. It was the constant reminder that no one cared, not the neighbors, not the HOA, and definitely not Breen or his mother. On the fourth day, Breen didn't just drive through. He made a damn donut. I watched in disbelief as he spun the back tires, sending dirt and grass flying into the air. The car was practically sideways on my lawn, its rear end kicking up dust, like it was performing in a stunt show. He didn't even slow down. When he finished, he gunned it and off he went, leaving behind a circle of destruction in the middle of my yard. I stood there for a long time after that, just staring at the mess. It was like something inside me finally snapped. The anger had been building, but this was deliberate. This wasn't an accident anymore. It was a choice. Breen was sending me a message, and I wasn't going to sit back and take it. I went into the garage. I passed my table saw, the router, the cabinets I'd been working on. Everything was in its place, organized. But today I wasn't thinking about woodworking. Today I was thinking about how to make Breen understand that consequences aren't just something other people face. I pulled out my notebook, the one I used for work orders back when I was still taking commissions. I started writing down everything. The dates, the damage, the times. I measured the tire tracks 15, 3 feet long, 6 inches deep, at the deepest point. I took photos from every angle, made sure the house number was visible in the frame. It wasn't just about making a point anymore. This was about proof. I wasn't going to let Breen ruin my lawn and get away with it. Not this time. I was done being polite. I was done asking for respect. Now I was going to show him what happens when you ignore someone who knows how to make things right. I didn't even wait for the next day. By the time the sun was setting, I was already writing a letter. It wasn't just any letter. It was professional, calculated, and above all, serious. I printed it on good paper, the kind that feels heavy, like you mean business. Dear Mr. Sutton, I am writing to formally address the repeated damage to my property, which has been caused by your son driving through my lawn. As you are aware, I have documented each incident carefully. The damage caused is not only disrespectful, but completely unacceptable. Please be advised that further violations will result in legal action to prevent this behavior from continuing. Attached, you will find detailed photographs of the damage along with a timeline of events. I trust you will take this matter seriously and ensure your son ceases driving on my property. Regards, Sterling Caldwell. I signed it carefully, just like I used to sign work orders when I promised a job well done. No mistakes, no second chances. The next morning at exactly 6:43 a.m., I was on my porch again, camera ready. Sure enough, the Lamborghini appeared cutting across my lawn like it owned the place. But this time I was ready. I filmed the whole thing, every second of it. The tire marks the license plate, Breen's face behind the wheel, grinning like he was untouchable. I saved the footage to 3 different places, cloud and local storage. I wasn't taking any chances. This time I had the evidence. The sun had barely come up, but I was already at the post office standing in line with the certified letter in hand. I could see the clerk, an older woman with reading glasses on, a chain glance at the address and raise an eyebrow. The Suttons, huh, she said with a little smirk. I've had a few letters go to them. I just nodded. She stamped it, handed me my receipt, and I went back home feeling the weight of the letter in my pocket. I'd done what I needed to do. I was done asking nicely. 2 days later, I got the tracking information. It showed that someone had signed for the letter at the Sutton house. I gave it another day just to be sure. But Breen didn't stop. At 6:47 a.m., like clockwork, the Lamborghini came roaring down the street again. This time, Breen wasn't just crossing my lawn, he sped through it, tires screeching, as he kicked up more dirt and grass, making a mockery of the warnings I'd sent him. I didn't even flinch. This wasn't about grass anymore. This was about respect, and I wasn't going to back down. That afternoon, I called the HOA office, got voicemail, and left a professional message outlining the situation and asking for it to be added to the next meeting agenda. The call came back 3 hours later. Mr. Caldwell Delphine's voice sounded warm and patronizing through the speaker. I think we should discuss this in person, don't you? The next morning, 6:47 a.m., sharp. Like clockwork, I watched Breen Sutton's Lamborghini approach again. This time, I wasn't just waiting to see what would happen. I knew. I had the evidence, and I was done with waiting. As usual, the car tore through my lawn, sending dirt and grass flying. But this time, Breen didn't stop there. He accelerated, making the tires screech as he spun them, tearing a deep circle into my lawn. The Lamborghini's engine roared, and I stood by the window watching him destroy what I'd spent years building. Then it happened. Breen hit the trench I'd carefully dug. The car jolted its front end, scraping hard against the ground. He slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The tires spun uselessly as the car sat stuck, its undercarriage grinding against the dirt. I stepped outside, taking my time. The sight of Breen trying to free his car was almost satisfying. He wasn't laughing now. The engine sputtered, and for a moment I watched him struggle. He couldn't get the car out. That's when I heard the sirens. Red and blue lights flashed down the street as 2 patrol cars pulled up. Breen jumped up, furious, pointing at his car. "You've got to do something," he yelled at the officers. The young officer stepped out, his expression confused as he surveyed the scene. I didn't need to say much. I knew I had the upper hand now. I'd been documenting everything. I pulled out my phone and showed him the videos I'd taken clear footage of Breen's car, tearing across my lawn day after day. The officer studied the footage, then looked at me. "You've got everything here," he said. "This doesn't look like an accident anymore." Breen, still furious, tried to argue. But the officer wasn't interested in his excuses. "I'm going to take a look at the car," he said, his voice steady. Breen's face was pale as the officer crouched down, inspecting the undercarriage. He stood up after a moment and looked at Breen. "This car's stuck. You'll need a tow. And from what I can see, this isn't just a mistake anymore. We have a pattern of property damage here." As Breen tried to protest, the second officer, older and more experienced, looked at me and gave a small nod. "I think we need to take this further. The HOA can't just ignore this anymore." Delphine, Breen's mother, appeared out of nowhere, wearing her robe and slippers, rushing down the driveway. She started yelling at the officers, demanding to know what was going on. The older officer held up his hand. "Ma'am, your son's been trespassing on Mr. Caldwell's property. He's been warned several times. We're calling a tow truck to remove the vehicle. It's done." I stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching as Breen's world started to crumble. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by panic. The Lamborghini, once a symbol of his entitlement, now sat like a broken toy. Delphine tried to argue further, but the officer shut her down. "This is a civil matter now. If you have an issue, speak to your lawyer. But it's over. Your son's behavior isn't just childish, it's illegal." Breen's expression faltered, his eyes wide, with the realization that he couldn't just bully his way out of this one. The neighbors who had gathered to watch stood in silence, their phones out. It was a spectacle, a kid who thought he could do whatever he wanted now, realizing that actions have consequences. The tow truck arrived soon after. Breen's car was towed away, its damage clear for everyone to see. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The officers handled it all. As they left, the older officer gave me a look, a small smile on his face. "Good job," he said. "You did everything right. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again." The crowd of neighbors began to disperse, and for the first time in days, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. Breen's sense of invincibility had been shattered. I had stood my ground, and it had paid off. The next morning felt strangely quiet. No Lamborghini tearing up my lawn, no shouting from Breen or Delphine. The sun rose like it always did, but today it felt like I was in control again. Breen didn't show his face. I didn't expect him to. His precious Lamborghini had been towed away, sitting in some mechanic's garage with God knows how much damage. That was his reality now. The arrogance he once wore like a crown had vanished, and he had no choice but to face the mess he had made. Delphine, on the other hand, didn't let it go so easily. She posted a few things on the neighborhood social media group about how some people take things too far and how we should all get along, but I didn't pay attention. She had always thought she could talk her way out of anything, but not this time. Her words didn't carry weight anymore. I hadn't planned to make a spectacle of it all. I didn't want to be the neighborhood hero. I just wanted to protect my property, to stand up for what I had worked for. That was enough for me. It wasn't about revenge, just about holding people accountable for their actions. The days after the incident were calm. The neighborhood felt quieter, but in a good way. People waved more often, and I started to notice a shift in how they treated me. They respected me more, maybe because I had done something they hadn't been able to. I didn't talk to anyone about what happened. I kept to myself, focusing on my cabinet project in the garage. Life was starting to return to normal. A few days later, Ramona knocked on my door again. This time she had a pie with her. Apple lattice crust, just like Sarah used to make. "Thanks, Ramona," I said, accepting the pie. She set it down on my porch table and gave me one of her usual smiles. "You saved this neighborhood," she said, her voice serious. "People were afraid before, but now they know they don't have to just put up with things." I didn't know what to say to that. It felt good to hear, but I wasn't looking for praise. I just wanted things to go back to normal. But Ramona wasn't done. "You did what needed to be done," she continued. "You stood up, and that's what matters." I smiled and shook my head. "I just wanted to protect what's mine." "Well, that's heroic in itself," she said with a wink. "You did what was right when it was hard, and now people know that." I didn't argue with her. She was probably right, but I wasn't in it for the praise. I just needed things to settle down, and they were. The neighborhood felt a little different, but in a good way. There was a new respect in the air. People weren't afraid to speak up anymore. Maybe things had been broken for a while, and I just didn't know it. Then the story took off. Ramona came by again, holding up her phone with a grin on her face. "You need to see this," she said, turning the screen toward me. It was a post from the neighborhood group, a photo of Breen's Lamborghini, or what was left of it, sitting on the Sutton's front lawn. The parts had been carefully arranged like an art installation. The caption read, "When you mess with the wrong neighbor, karma served cold in suburbia." I didn't need to check how many likes it had. I could already feel it. People were sharing it, commenting, agreeing. It went viral, at least within our neighborhood. I hadn't wanted the attention, but it was hard not to feel a little satisfaction. People were finally seeing Breen for who he really was, a spoiled kid with no consequences. The best part, the video footage from the morning when Delphine had confronted me at the house. People saw her red-faced and yelling at the officers, her authority slipping away as the cops explained how property rights worked. That video spread faster than anything. I knew it was a spectacle, but I couldn't deny the small thrill of seeing her exposed for the first time. By the time the HOA called their emergency meeting, Delphine's position was in jeopardy. Ramona came by after the meeting and filled me in. The board had voted her out. It wasn't even close. It was a public rebuke. Delphine had been removed as head of the HOA, and the board was finally stepping in to fix the damage she had caused. I didn't need to be there for that. The neighborhood had spoken. The change had already started, and I had played my part in it. As for Breen, I didn't see him much after that. When I did, he kept his head down, his eyes on the road. I think he learned a lesson the hard way. And as for me, I went back to my usual routine. Sarah's driveway was clean again, perfect, no tire marks, no damage. I stood out there one evening looking at it, and it felt like everything had come full circle.